Okay, let's begin. We are streaming live on Facebook. Good evening. I'm Ann Luther with the League of Women Voters of Maine. On behalf of the League, I want to welcome you, joined by our co-sponsors, the Ellsworth American, the Mount Desert Islander, the Weekly Packet, the Castine Patriot, and Island Advantages. These great papers, we're proud to have them join the League in sponsoring this series of events. The League has been promoting voter participation for over 100 years. If you are interested in joining the League, we would welcome you as a member or a volunteer. Our website is LWVME.org. For our event tonight, participants on Zoom will be muted throughout and the chat will be turned off. Participants on Zoom can submit questions through the Q&A box. You'll see that Q&A button on the toolbar, the bottom toolbar of your Zoom screen. Fair warning, we have quite a few questions that have come in advance by email. I hope we'll have time for a few more, but put your questions into the Q&A box and our moderator will work them into the rotation as best she can. We will not be monitoring questions on Facebook. We do have somebody monitoring the Facebook comments over there, but only to make sure that we keep the conversation civil. If you're on Facebook live stream and want to ask a question, it's not too late to join the Zoom. Go to lwvme.org events and register as a participant. You'll get the link immediately and you can then come in as a participant on the Zoom side. The Facebook video will be available for later viewing on Facebook and through our online voter guide at vote411.org. The League of Women Voters of Maine posts recordings of these forums in order to inform voters. These recordings are unedited. Viewers may share or embed the complete video. However, no parties are authorized to download, edit, or distribute any part of this recording without written consent from the League of Women Voters of Maine. Excerpts and/or edited clips of the recordings may not be used for partisan, political, and/or campaign purposes. We appreciate your cooperation on this. Now, let me introduce our moderator for tonight, Cyndi Wood. Cyndi is managing editor of the Ellsworth American, an Ellsworth native. She joined the staff of the American in 2007 as a reporter, and now here she is the managing editor. Here's Cyndi. I'll see you back here at the end.
Thank you so much, Anne, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for organizing this forum and to the candidates for participating. Jonathan Goble spent much of his childhood in Washington County. After attending Oberlin College, he enlisted in the Army and served 3 tours in Vietnam. He remained in the Army for 23 years. While serving, he attended graduate school in counseling psychology before providing mental health care to service members and their families. Jonathan then built a civilian career in mental health, coordinating a psych assessment service, did emergency evaluations for a public mental health center, and worked as a forensic psychologist specializing in child care cases. Currently, Jonathan actively participates with the White House Rural Stakeholders Group. He is state director of the Democratic Council on Veterans and Military Families. Senator Marianne Moore is in her second term serving District 6. She currently serves as Senate lead on the Health and Human Services Committee. A Calais resident, she served 9 years on the Calais City Council and as mayor for 4 years. She owned a Curves Fitness Center for more than 12 years. Working for Healthy Acadia, she was a Washington County Cancer Patient Navigator, helping address barriers to care. She is a former member of the Washington County Extension Association and served as treasurer of the Washington County Development Authority. She was a member of the Maine Permanent Commission on the Status of Women, a Calais Regional Hospital trustee, and former executive board chair of the St. Croix Valley Chamber of Commerce. The ground rules for tonight's discussion are simple. Audience members are invited to submit questions through the Q&A function, as Anne mentioned, and we received some in advance via email. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to make an opening statement. Both candidates will be asked to respond to 3 questions provided in advance. The ordering of questioning will alternate between the candidates. For each question, the response will be limited to 3 minutes. Candidates will then be presented with questions posed by the audience. Questions will be selected by the moderator and may be reworded. A question may be posed to a single candidate, but the other candidate will be given an opportunity to respond. Responses will be limited to 2 minutes. We anticipate that there will be time for at least 4 questions from the audience. Finally, each candidate will be given 2 minutes to present a closing statement. We'll kick things off with the opening statements. Jonathan, you want to start us off?
Sure, happy to. I am Jonathan Goble. I did spend not just much, but most of my childhood living in Steuben in Washington County. Family moved away, shame on them, to upstate New York when I entered high school. So I'm a graduate of a high school in Schenectady, New York, that no longer exists. But on to Oberlin College. And it was during that time that I realized that public service in one form or another was simply what I needed to do. That was the early 60s, civil rights movement was going, and I ended up being involved in the political side of that. And after college, it was into the Army it wound up being 23 years. And that too is to me simply public service, followed by the career in mental health. A lot of that time spent doing psychological assessments and working on behalf of children caught in the middle of unfortunate circumstances. And I see service in the state Senate as a continuation of public service, because the object is to help create the conditions that would make the lives for people in Washington County and the eastern, third of Hancock County better, with greater opportunity and greater fairness.
Thank you. Marianne, your opening statement.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to say a few words about me and my candidacy. As Cyndi mentioned, my name is Marianne Moore, and I currently reside in Calais. I am running for the Maine Senate District 6, which includes all of Washington County and 16 communities in eastern Hancock County. I am currently in my second term as a state senator, serving as the Senate lead on the Health and Human Services Committee, and am seeking re-election to the seat in November 2022. I moved to Maine in April of 2001 from Dallas, Texas. Dallas to Calais is my claim to fame. Since my move to Calais, I've been very active in the community, serving on a variety of civic and community organizations representing Washington County throughout the state. I previously served 9 years on the Calais City Council and 4 years as the mayor of Calais, and was the former owner-manager of the Curves Fitness Center here in Calais. I previously worked for Healthy Acadia as one of the Washington County cancer patient navigators, as Cyndi mentioned, where I helped address the complex barriers to short and long-term care faced by cancer patients in Washington County. On a personal note, I'm proudly the mother of 2 grown daughters, 2 granddaughters, a grandson, a great-granddaughter, and a great-grandson, all who reside in Texas, and a cat named Gizmo. I have a Bachelor of Applied Arts and Sciences degree from Dallas Baptist University in Dallas, which took me 18 years to achieve as a working single mother. I then went on to complete my Master of Business Administration from Southern Methodist University in Dallas as well. For fun, I have climbed to the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa. I climbed a base camp on Mount Everest in Nepal, and have hiked the Inca Trail in Peru, besides several hikes to the summit of Mount Katahdin. In addition to my 13 years of local public service, I also bring to the table more than 30 years of corporate experience, having retired from AT&T Communications in 2000, along with more than 12 years as a small business owner and 3 years as an instructor at Washington County Community College. I look forward to your questions this evening.
Thank you. Let's move right into the prepared questions. You will have 3 minutes to answer each question. The first is, what are the impacts of changing climate in your district, and how can they be addressed by the legislature? Marianne?
Cyndi. Well, warming water has definitely threatened communities in our district more than most others. So many of our heritage industries rely on the ocean. It is important to take steps to address climate change, while also ensuring our policies don't make life harder for those already struggling. As we've heard recently, California passed legislation that will ban the sale of gas-powered cars after the year 2035. I would oppose this proposal should anyone bring it forward in the Maine legislature. We're just not ready for that in such a rural part of Maine. I do, however, support programs that help businesses and individuals to properly insulate their homes, thereby allowing them to cut costs on fuel. Incentivizing people to take steps to become more energy efficient is much more effective than forcing a policy that doesn't work for everyday Mainers. Thank you.
Thank you. Jonathan, what are the impacts of changing climate in your district, and how can they be addressed by the legislature?
As Marianne mentioned, we're sitting on the edge of the Gulf of Maine, which is one of the fastest warming bodies of water on this planet. This has had impacts throughout the fishing community. It's also, though, affected a variety of things on land, as we've seen from just changes in weather patterns, and so on. And it's very clear that we do need to take the steps to reduce reliance on fossil fuels. Ultimately, we will need to stop being reliant. But until we have infrastructure in place, that simply won't be possible. But now is the time to start building that infrastructure. There are businesses such as the Paris Auto Barn, which has been busy encouraging the setting up of charging stations around that area in Oxford and Androscoggin County. And this is the kind of thing that the legislature needs to encourage in order for us to become less reliant on the internal combustion engine. Similarly, we will need to find the renewable sources of electricity and find ways to do this with solar farms, wind farms, even offshore ones, but to do this in a way which keeps not only the planet being used sustainably, but in which our communities can be sustained. We need to look at some of the solutions on this that Europe is using as European countries are steadily becoming less dependent on burning fossil fuels.
Thank you. Next question. What are the major economic problems in your district, and how do you propose addressing them locally and in the legislature? Jonathan?
The easiest way to describe the economic problems is to say that times are tough here. There are not enough good paying jobs. We don't have much in the way of large industry. Rather, this is an area of small businesses. And it's the small businesses that are providing the jobs. And of course, the extremely small businesses where people are working for themselves. Our income levels are low, the opportunities are low, and there are things that the state legislature can do to address these problems, to encourage development of businesses, again, building infrastructure from roads to broadband. Both will employ people, but they'll create the basis needed for our economy to be a 21st century economy. We've got Deepwater Port in Eastport, which is underutilized, where things like, and this is a long-term comment, but reviving the mothballed Calais branch, rail branch, and the spur down to Eastport would enable, in an energy efficient way, since rail is much more efficient than trucking, to use the port as a container port, bringing in goods and services and employing lots of people along the coast.
Thank you. Marianne, same question. What are the major economic problems in your district, and how do you propose addressing them locally and in the legislature?
Cindy, and Jonathan, you bring up some really, really good points. Right now, I think the most pressing issue is definitely supporting our lobster fishing families. Their livelihood is currently in jeopardy, though they have continuously worked to meet every demand on them. As state senator, I have continuously advocated for them on the federal level and on the state level. I supported legislation to create the Lobster Legal Defense Fund. Each boat is really its own small business, and we all know that our small businesses, as Jonathan mentioned, are the backbone of our economy, especially in Down East Maine. I've been so impressed by the organization and outreach by local communities regarding this issue. They've all mobilized to advocate for themselves in the most impressive manner. Our fishing communities are so strong, and we're vastly underestimated by those seeking to misrepresent the facts. Together, we will continue this fight. I'm also quite concerned about the rising costs of living with the high rate of inflation we are experiencing. I especially worry about our citizens on fixed incomes and how they will survive the winter. While I support pro-growth policies to expand Maine's economy and lower energy costs, I would need to carefully review proposed policy changes. If they're going to raise costs for our hardworking Mainers, I will be in opposition. We need to do everything we can to support our fishing industry, along with our forest and our farming industries. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 3. What are the challenges for healthcare in your district, including mental and behavioral health, and how should the legislature address them? Marianne?
As the Republican lead on the Health and Human Services Committee, access to quality health care is always on my mind. Just last session, Machias Veterans Home was set to close. I partnered with the Senate President and helped to ensure that did not happen. I will continue to advocate for programs that encourage healthcare professionals to practice in rural Maine. Access to mental health services has become increasingly necessary as a result of the pandemic. Our young people lost out on so much during that time. Prom, field trips, basketball games, and just socializing with their peers was off limits. It really took a toll, and so many are still struggling. Eliminating the stigma and encouraging people to seek help is important, but having the professionals available to work with patients is another hurdle. Luckily, telehealth is now more readily available, and I was pleased to support legislation making it a covered service. However, I will continue to work to make sure that mental health services are provided, especially in our rural areas of Maine. Thank you.
Thank you. Jonathan, same question. What are the challenges for healthcare in your district, including mental and behavioral health?
Marianne said a lot of useful things in that. One of the clear problems is that far too many of the descriptions of access to healthcare simply have to do with the costs. And so we see a lot of talk about the insurance availability and so on, and that's real. But it's only half the story in rural Maine, where the services just aren't all there to be accessed. There's a shortage of specialty care in Washington County, to some extent in Eastern Hancock County. Though the distances aren't as great there, it still can be a problem if you have to go to Bangor to access a cardiologist. And so we absolutely need to find the way to encourage physicians and other specialists to settle in down East Maine. When it comes to mental health, we see that problem directly in that psychiatrists and psychologists just don't want to settle east of Ellsworth much. We used to have in Maine a public mental health system that was a model for the country. We don't anymore. It's been fragmented. There's confusion over which private outfit is supposed to do what. And that needs to be sorted out, and we need to manage to encourage qualified therapists to come to settle, to become part of the community. And it's not just the traditional mental health issues, but of course we continue to face huge problems with addictions. We do not have a good continuum of care ranging all the way from medical supported detox down to the self-help 12-step programs. And we need every step of that, or we will lose people along the way who are in the system trying to get help.
Thank you. We will move on into some of the submitted questions. First question, what will you do to engage youth with the political process, even those who cannot yet vote? Jonathan?
Interesting and good question. It's the clearest way to do this is you need to talk with people, need to get out and reach out to the young people to help arrange for voter registration in the schools, in the universities, where there simply is not the level of participation in the political process. And part of it is, there are a number of reasons. Part of it is the taint of partisan politics. And you have to remember, as an elected representative, that you're elected to represent all the citizens of the area. So it means going into the schools, going into where the young people are, talking with them, and even more importantly, listening to them and making sure that you act in the ways where they know that they've been heard.
Thank you. Marianne, same question. What will you do to engage youth with the political process?
Thank you, Cyndi. And Jonathan, you brought up some really good points, and it is a very good question. And I know what I have tried to do is be out there in the schools, go and speak with the JMG classes. That really, they right there is where they've got, they're doing civil projects, they're getting involved with the community. So what I try to do is talk to them about volunteerism and, you know, encourage them to go to the school board meetings, have a say what's going on in their schools, get a start to that. I know myself, before I moved to Calais, I had never, ever been involved in politics. And I was starting to listen to the city council meetings. And when I realized that I didn't like what they were doing, I needed to say something. So that's when I got involved. So I try to explain that to the kids and say, you know, this is where you need to start, and let us know what you don't like or what's not going on, but also tell us what you think should go on, and let them listen. I used to always enjoy it when we would look up and we would have some children or kids join us in our city council meeting. Most of the time they were doing a project, or they were writing notes to it, but they were paying attention. And I think that's really, really important. And along the campaign trail, I've started to see more and more young kids that are getting involved and asking questions. And, you know, some of them are taking sides, which we may not always want them to do, but they're getting involved, and they are, you know, when I'm standing there talking to a 15-year-old that's rattling off all kinds of things about the political world and what's going on, I was quite impressed. And so I think that's what we need to do, is to continue to encourage them to ask those questions. And as Jonathan mentioned, and listen to what they're saying and incorporate them and encourage them to be involved. Thanks.
Thanks. Second question from the audience. Now that the Supreme Court has overturned Roe v. Wade, should Maine's abortion law change? If so, how? Marianne?
First and foremost, I totally support the current Maine laws as it relates to the abortions, and I have no plans on voting against any changes to the existing laws. I believe all lives matter. While it may not be my choice, I feel a woman should have the right to choose what happens with her body, not only as it relates to abortions, but also vaccines or any other mandates attempting to govern her body. A woman's decision regarding an abortion should be between her, her doctor, and her higher being, not the government. I feel the same for the men as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Jonathan, now that the Supreme Court has overturned Roe v. Wade, should Maine's abortion law change?
Well, it certainly should not be made more restrictive. I would like to see better guarantee that the current situation where reproductive freedom is supported, I would love to see that written not in law, but in the Constitution, that we live in a pluralistic country. People have differing opinions on this. And what needs to happen is that each individual's decision on this over themselves needs to be respected. And I worry when I see other states trying to nibble away at people's freedom to make the choice themselves, that feels right for themselves in what is generally an awkward, uncomfortable decision-making situation. So my thought here is, no, we don't want to change it, but we want to guarantee in some fashion that we remain what we are, a society that respects differing views on this question.
Thank you. This next one, I think both of you have touched on in earlier remarks, but we'll plug along. Pending federal regulations to protect right whales could profoundly affect Maine's lobstering community. What should be the state's continuing role in that regulatory process and in related cases in the courts? Jonathan?
The obvious thing is that Maine needs to, as a state, take the stand in favor of the use of the best science on how it is that lobstermen and right whales both get to live. And shutting down or making it hugely more expensive to be able to fish is going to put lobstermen, particularly those with smaller operations and less already, having less money in the bank, it's going to endanger them. It should be possible to find that way, but it certainly won't be possible if what is relied on is out-of-date views of where the right whales are. We've not seen an entanglement death of a right whale here. And yet the Maine lobstermen are the ones who are supposed to carry the burden of protecting the whales who are migrating further offshore.
Thank you. Marianne, same question. What should be the state's continuing role in the regulatory process concerning protections for right whales and in related cases in the courts?
And Jonathan is exactly correct. We have got to continue fighting it. This is just uncalled for. It's not scientifically sound. I think as a state, we need to continue to pursue that. We need to file suit as a state. I personally think we should file suit against NOAA because they're not listening to us. I've attended numerous amount of listening sessions at the very beginning. At one of them, the University of Maine at Machias, and the auditorium was packed full of fishermen. They were telling their stories. They were telling how year after year, the gear changes and they do everything that they've been told to do. And yet they continue to still slap these different regulations on them that's causing them undue expense and causing them undue strain. In the recent rallies that have been going on since all of this conversation has come up again, I talked to one lobsterman who's been fishing for more than 40 years. He's never seen a right whale. Never. And all of these poor lobstermen, as it is, the prices have gone up as far as the bait that they needed to purchase, the fuel that they're doing. It's really, really frustrating, and it's their livelihood. So we as a state need to work closely with our congressional delegations who are behind us as well and fight against this and say no and push it back and make sure that we look out for lobstermen, because this is such a major industry here in the state of Maine for all of our little small businesses, as we say, but for all of our fishing industry itself.
Next question. Currently, there is not sufficient care or support for long COVID patients in Maine. How will you support these individuals, and what will you do to prevent more folks from developing this illness? Marianne?
That's a very complicated question, and it is something that definitely needs to be addressed. I know that at being a member of the Health and Human Services Committee, through this entire pandemic situation, the entire vaccine, we were constantly receiving updates from Dr. Shaw, and I don't think we know all of how bad it is. And this long COVID, that's something that has just started to really come forward, and we're finding out that these folks are really suffering. So I think we need to, as a legislature especially, continue to stay informed. The Health and Human Services Committee should take a look at what needs to be done, what mitigation can be done, and really make sure we understand all of the parameters that are around it and what's happening, so that we can be sure and provide the aid and the assistance that is so desperately needed for those folks that are suffering from this long COVID.
Thank you. Jonathan, how will you support Mainers with long COVID, and what will you do to prevent more folks from developing this illness?
starting with the last part of that question first of prevention. Long COVID begins with people catching COVID. And COVID and the serious cases of COVID is very clearly at this point, it's those who are not vaccinated who are at greatest risk. And it's a matter of risk and what the odds are. The state can continue to make sure that we have adequate supplies of vaccine and that it take an active role in encouraging people to get vaccinated. And as it appears we're headed toward, with vaccines tailored to particular variants, much the way we deal with flu. But we need to recognize that people getting sick, they need the care that they need. And the state has a clear role in making sure that it's available. So Marianne Moore is exactly right that the legislature needs to keep itself informed on what those needs are, and then to figure out what the best way of providing it to all the affected people actually is.
Thank you. Next question. What is your position on the sale of tobacco products that come in fruit, candy, and mint flavors, which attract kids and can get them addicted to nicotine? Would you support a ban on flavored tobacco in Maine? Jonathan.
This feels like an old problem coming back round in a somewhat new form. Much like the problems of advertising targeting advertising for cigarettes that particularly targeted those who were too young to legally smoke. Yes, I would support measures that would make it less likely for children to become addicted. Nicotine is a tough addiction to free oneself from. And to have companies profiting by targeting children with fancy fruit flavors, etc. I see no social good in that at all, and it would be appropriate to make it illegal.
Marianne, would you support a ban on flavored tobacco in Maine?
Thank you, Cyndi, for the question. This has been a topic that has been right at the top of all of our discussions, I think, for the last 4 years that I've been in the Senate. When we started out at the beginning in the Health and Human Services Committee, we all agreed that we have a major problem with our children vaping and vaping products getting in the hands of our children. It's huge. And it is a very serious situation. So right off the bat, we immediately raised the age to 21, where they had to be 21 years of age or older to purchase any type of vaping products, similar to the cigarettes themselves, in an effort to try to keep it out of the hands of the kids. It obviously has not worked. They're still getting it. They're getting it from adults that are purchasing for them. We worked really hard where they cannot purchase it online. If you go online and try to buy vaping products and you list your state being Maine, it does not allow it. We've put a lot of measures in place in an effort to try to get these vaping products out of the hands of our kids. It is very serious. It's a huge situation. We had kids come before us telling us how they've seen their friends deteriorate. Banning them, I don't think, is the total answer. We've got adults that are using them. Adults are making the decision to use the vaping products. We have businesses that is their industry. They are being very careful. They're making sure no one comes in that's under the age of 21. They're abiding by all of the laws. It's the things at home that are happening that are where the kids are actually getting their hands onto the vaping products. My concern, if we start banning the flavored products, what are they going to ban next? My wine? I think we need to be very careful when we start telling adults what they cannot have.
Thank you. Next question. What can be done about crime in your district, particularly as it relates to drug use? Marianne?
It's a huge problem here in Washington County, and as we all know. And we continue to try to work on, well, first of all, we need more law enforcement. I think that's a number one key. Everywhere in the state of Maine, let alone in Washington County, we have such a shortage of law enforcement. And then the ability to actually do the investigations that are related to that. And there is a lot of hard work going on in the sheriff's department, and they're working with the DEA in trying to identify. What we've got to do is we have got to get the pushers out of the state. If they've got the customers, they're coming here, and those are the ones that are bringing it in. And sadly, a lot of the drugs are being laced with fentanyl, which is deadly. And we've got young folks that are not familiar with it. They're thinking they're smoking grass, and it turns out to be laced with fentanyl, and they're dying on us. So I think we need to make sure that we've got the resources available, get the word out there that the resources are available everywhere we can get, whether it's, if we've given them Narcan and we've revived them, we've given them a kit of Narcan just in case, but we've also given them the resources that they can go and get help. We have more recovery centers, and we need to continue to work with those and make sure that we have the available resources, just like our mental health, to continue for the substance use disorders so that we can help those that are in dire need of it and get that information to them and get them the help that they need so that we can stop or at least reduce this critical situation here in Washington County.
Thank you. Jonathan, what can be done about crime in your district, particularly as it relates to drug use?
Right now, the fastest growing and largest substance abuse treatment programs occur in the jails and prisons. And that's very sad and very ineffective. We absolutely need to have the services available to help people who are addicted stop. If we do that, we've cut the demand, though eliminating it is another step that's probably not going to follow easily. One step too, though, is that we need, I believe, diversion programs in the form of drug courts, where the district attorney, the sheriff, and the court system work on finding for people and doing it under court order ways of diverting people into treatment rather than having detox simply perform on people when they're behind bars. And I'll stop there because I could go on a long time on this one.
Careful, I'm supposed to shut you down. Next submitted question. Will you accept the November 8th election results? Jonathan?
Yes.
Marianne?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Would the proposed flagpole of Freedom Park be a good thing for Washington County? Marianne?
Thank you, Cyndi, for that question. That is a very, very important question. And I've been involved with it this last year because of making sure the bill that I put forward was to make sure that the citizens of Columbia actually had a say on a referendum whether or not they were willing to take on the land that is currently in the non-organized territory and make it part of their town. It is a huge project. It's a major project, and there is a lot of different pieces to it to come together to make it happen. Do I think the project would be great? It looks fabulous. It looks awesome. The whole idea of it. Is it going to fly in Washington County? I'm not so sure. It really is a big project. It's going to take quite a bit of funding to have it happen, and it's all going to be private funding. It is a big project that Columbia may not be ready to take on. Columbia Falls, they may not be ready to oversee it. The infrastructure in place, the planners are the ones that are actually our proposal is to put all of that into place. So it's going to be a matter of wait and see how it's going to progress.
Thank you. Jonathan, would the proposed flagpole of Freedom Park be a good thing for Washington County?
I'm very nervous about the plan. I spent a number of years living in North Carolina, going to the North Carolina State Fair. And one of the sideshow attractions was the world's largest pig. And it was there every year, and I have no idea if it was really the largest. But what we're seeing is a business model along those lines. And how many times do people go to see the world's largest pig or the world's tallest flagpole? And I don't know the answer. I'm worried about it. And I'm especially worried of just what it would do, not just to the citizens of Columbia Falls, but all of Washington County, given that it'll be visible, well, at least all over the southern half of Washington County and on into Hancock County. And they aren't being given a say. And if the flagpole project goes bankrupt, then who becomes responsible for dealing with maintaining or tearing down the world's largest pig that nobody wants to see for the 5th time?
Thanks. That's the end of our submitted questions. We'll move into closing remarks. Jonathan, you want to start off?
Oh, do I start off again?
We do in order, but if you'd like to flip, it's fine by me.
I've got no problem.
We'll let Marianne have the last word.
Well, she's the incumbent. Why not? Look, I'm running for state senate with a number of goals, number of things I want to see happen. I want to see affordable and available health care, including the full range of mental health care services. I will work extremely hard on behalf of veterans, active duty, National Guard and Reserve Service members, and their families, those other people who are equally serving us, those who call Maine home. I will work to preserve and to protect always the reproductive rights of all people. And I'm committed to building or seeing that they are built the conditions necessary for full participation in the 21st century economy, such as broadband, better roads, better skills training, better housing for the jobs of today and tomorrow for the benefit of all of Down East Maine.
Thank you. Marianne, your closing statement?
Cyndi. In closing, I guess, again, thank you to the organizers for the opportunity to come out tonight to answer your questions and concerns. With the support of the voters, I will continue to fight for common sense priorities. Making fiscally responsible decisions on budgets affecting rural schools and our towns and our cities, strengthening infrastructure and our roads, supporting broadband expansion, making it easier for small businesses to thrive and create jobs, protecting our elderly and advocating for veterans, ensuring rural areas such as ours continue to have access to affordable, quality health care, supporting our law enforcement and solutions to the rising drug epidemic, and finishing what we've started on the Indian Claims Settlement Act. As a community leader, I would be honored to continue working in Augusta for the citizens of Washington County and the 16 communities in Eastern Hancock County. I encourage everyone to get out and vote early or on November the 8th. Thank you so much.
Thank you to both for participating and answering the questions so candidly and cordially.
And thank you, Cyndi, for moderating so ably. We're very grateful to all of you for participating tonight, for your willingness to run for office and serve if elected. Public service is a high calling and worthy of our respect for your doing it. So thank you all so much for being here tonight. We have 2 more forums left in this series running tomorrow night as House Districts 15 and 16, the other end of Hancock County. So join us for those if you're in that district, and we'll say goodnight. Thank you again.